Hello, my lovelies. I'm going to attempt to restart this channel and I want to talk about the craft of writing. There's lots of reasons I want to do that. There's lots of discourse right now on publishing and new writers and what they should be doing and how they should be writing, and back and forth about excuse me, I have hiccups all of a sudden, the quality of writing and what that looks like. But I want to talk about the actual craft of writing because I hope that my experience and what I've learned over the years and the books that I've written can help other people with their writing. Because I love writing. I have been doing it since I was a little kid. I love crafting stories. I love building worlds. I love making characters. I love all the little bits of the written word. I I think writing and the written word is like its own kind of magic. Words have power. Stories are ideas. Ideas change people. You can, with words, change the course of a person's life by implanting an idea that changed them on a fundamental level. Words and storytelling are intricate to the human condition and who and what we are. And words have always been immensely powerful to me as a person, but storytelling, books, just I can't even express how much I love words and the written word. And when I was a kid, um, I was very severely dyslexic and I could not read really at all until I was like fifth grade. And they found out I couldn't read and they finally tested me and they found out I was dyslexic. And they put me in classes, special programs that they had back in the 80s for dyslexic kids. And there weren't many of those, by the way. And eventually, I was able to catch up on reading. And once I discovered reading, once I learned how, I I just became so enamored with it. I have read so many different things and it has changed me as a person. And there are things in books that you can't find anywhere else. And I want to talk about it because I love it so very much and I want to help express that to other people. I'm hoping that talking more about writing will help me get through my writer's block. And I want to talk not just about the giant ideas and of writing, but I'm talking about like the nitty gritty, like techniques. How do you achieve these grand ideas, right? So, I have 4 books out. I'm a multi-genre writer. There are some things that I'm really good at and some things I'm really bad at, and I want to talk about all of those things. I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm just saying I'm someone who truly loves writing and the writing craft and learning more about it. And I want to explore that in this channel. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to help. I'm hoping that at some point I can do like the podcast thing. I did a podcast with a friend of mine, and this is what inspired me to make this video. Is like he was doing critique on his work so they could talk about the craft, and I had so much fun and I felt so inspired afterwards that I wanted to do some of my own. So that's what this is, and I hope you'll stick around and enjoy the my rambly talk about my love of writing and all the things that it entails. So to get started with, I was trying to figure out what should I talk about first when it comes to the craft of writing. And I think the first thing we need to talk about is for younger or newer authors, not necessarily younger, because sometimes people don't start writing until they're older. Um, for newer authors, for newer writers, it's important to remember that you do not have to rush. So often, I have seen some very young writers They get their first manuscript done, they get it, and because publishing now, there is some really easy and free methods of publishing their work. They immediately rush to publishing. I'm not saying they don't edit. I'm not saying they don't get covers. I'm not saying, even with all the editing, with the covers and everything else, they rush, they get published, and then they are surprised by the response that they get from people, and they're hurt and they're upset and they get discouraged because it wasn't received the way they expected it to be. And what I want to say to that is that it isn't because the story isn't good, it isn't because their writing isn't good, it's because sometimes, sometimes it's not all the time, that you don't know what you don't know. And when you're new, it writing is not a, oh, I know how to write, I have achieved this thing. It is a process that develops over time. No matter how good a writer you are, when you first start writing, it is clear to anyone who knows about the craft that what you're writing is from a new author, from a new writer, because your voice, your techniques, all of these things will develop over time into your style, right? And doesn't mean it isn't correct, it isn't, isn't a good story. It just won't have your voice. And your voice is what really changes uh, you know, a book into something more. And I always feel a little bad because like they don't understand why they're not getting the reviews that they wanted, or they're not getting the traction they wanted, or why are people upset because their voice isn't coming through. And it's hard to have your voice right off the bat. It takes years of experience and rejection and critique to find yourself in all the words. And the more you write, and here's the thing, when people say write every day, this this expression of write every day doesn't help if you don't know what you might be doing wrong. What they mean when people say the more you write, the more you, they're not just saying just write more. They mean go through the whole process. And this also includes the rejection and the critique. I benefited from some of the most brutal critiquing in my younger days. Like I went and I got my feelings hurt a lot. And unfortunately, I feel like, not that I want people to get their feelings hurt about their writing and getting discouraged. I think there is some benefit for getting your work sort of torn apart a little bit so that you learn where your weaknesses are, and you learn how to navigate once the feelings of having your darling ripped apart, but also like, okay, how do I improve that? So I was lovingly torn apart by my friends and family as I was writing so that I learned to get better. And sometimes you just have to get your feelings hurt a little bit. In that, one, so these, to these newer authors, I want to say that I would not expect your first work to be something you give to someone else to read. Your first book should, I'm of the opinion that it doesn't matter who you are, your first work should not be for everyone else. I don't think there is any writer, anytime, in any period, who out the gate their first completed manuscript was the best-selling novel. And I think if anybody tells you, oh yeah, that was their first book, I think they're lying. I think that is their first known publication, and anything else they might have written is tucked in a drawer somewhere, hidden away so no one can see it. And I'm convinced of that. I have journals and journals and journals hidden in bottom drawers to never be seen unless like one of my children will be like, I want to be a writer. I'm like, I'm going to have you read my first 10 chapters of crap so that you realize that this is how it starts, and it's okay to be bad at the start. Everyone is. And that's you nobody starts out right drawing like Picasso didn't start out being Picasso. They all start out with like terrible drawings and, stick figures. You have to work your way to being more, to doing better. And part of that is being able to look at what works and what doesn't. Um, there are It's important as an author to know that your choices in things like setting, point of view, like what is these set your story and will change your narrative. So, your POV, your point of view, is really important to know what you want to do. Genres have expectations of point of view, but that is just an expectation. It does not mean that you have to. I wrote a post apocalyptic survival story, right? Most post apocalyptics are not written in first person point of view. But I wrote Motherhood at the End of the World as a first person point of view, past tense, right? Because I wanted to keep the scope very narrow to this mother surviving an apocalyptic event. I wanted to keep it to her family trying to survive this event. So I knew I needed to narrow my scope, and that's what POV does. The bigger the scope, the more you can include, the wider the worldview. Like, first person is I'm just this one person. I'm going to look through this little hole. I'm going to watch just this thing. You have third person, which is a much broader span. You can get third person limited, where I'm just watching this one person, sort of over their shoulder. I can see what's happening around them. I can see someone sneaking up behind them, but they won't know. Ha ha ha, kind of thing. You have, um, third person, like omniscient, that knows everything, and then that narrator can explain everything to everyone. So it sort of depends on how broad a scope you want your story to have. I would recommend for something like an epic fantasy where I want to have world events and wars and history, I would go with third person, omniscient, and just write it. And then you can like pick and choose what parts need to come in. Um, it's also really important to not, like, I know there's a lot of plotters out there, and they'll plot themselves all the things, and then they get really upset, or if they can't seem to follow their own plot, and it's like, it's okay. It's supposed to be a scaffolding, not a prison. You know what I mean? If you need to change things, if you need to replot, if you need to change the order, it's okay to do that. Um, I mean, obviously they already know that. I'm not trying to talk down to people, so it's just the decisions you make in these moments can affect how the story is played. And it's important to know, like with your POV, why you're choosing it. What is it you're trying to do? And like some people think that first person POV, you pick that if you want somebody to feel really close to the story. So a lot of romance gets put in first person point of view. And it can help a person feel really connected and immersed in the story and feel like they're in it with the character. Um, if you give it but the only way to achieve that isn't just by putting it in first person POV. You also have to give the internal voice of that person. You want to, if you are in first person POV, the way to make the person feel connected isn't just by putting them in a first person POV. It's about including their internal thoughts, their physical emotions, describing what's happening to them in that moment. Like, they're afraid, but instead of just saying fear rushed through me, you can have them talk about the cold sweat that broke across their skin, and the spider uh, of fear crawling up their spine, or that weird taste that you get in your mouth when you're really scared of something. If they're angry, they can feel the eye muscle twitching, or the heat in their hands as they make fists. You know what I'm talking about? You want to give descriptions of their internal world, because otherwise, yeah, you've put me in first person point of view, but I feel like I'm wearing a cardboard mask and I'm just walking through, and it's like, if that's what you want to have happen, that's fine. But you should know that the intention of what you're trying to achieve from a reader's perspective. I understand that as a writer, you're like, I'm writing this story for me, but are you? Are you writing the story for you? Or are you writing the story so that when someone else reads it, they experience what you're experiencing as you're writing it? And there's nothing wrong with just writing something that's for you. Absolutely do that. But if you're trying to write something where you are giving an experience to the reader, or you're trying to craft this moment for them, then you have to be very, at least mindful and intentional of your decisions. So if you, that's why POV can be really important, and it's important to be mindful and know what you want to do with it. If first person point of view can be really intense and it wonderfully thrilling of an experience, if as long as you make sure that the world that you've crafted in this first person is full. And just because you're limited in what they experience outside of themselves doesn't mean you can't describe what's happening on their inner world, what they smell, what they taste, their physical reactions to things. There's so many things that you can describe when you walk through your own world. You got all five senses to work with, so there's no reason to not fill out the story so that the person feels more immersed. And giving those descriptions at right times and intervals can create tension, suspense. You can do thrills, you can do fear, you can do horror from first person point of view. All of the things that you could do in third person, you can do in first person. It's just a matter of choosing your descriptors and knowing your intention when you're writing and what the scene calls for. So um, that's sort of like, I don't hope I didn't come off as like pushy or something. The differences in like why POV is so important and how you can achieve certain descriptors through first person point of view. Third person point of view, I like third person limited personally, because I don't necessarily want the whole world all the time. I want to keep the story to like my little band of misfits or something. But I like being able to have like the guards over there react to what these people are doing. And that third person limited is kind of like watching a movie or watching a TV show, and you're on the room and you're watching people come in and out of the room and do different things, but you also get little thought bubbles. Like you can hear their inner voice while they're doing whatever. That's third person limited. And that is a fun place to be because you can get so many different reactions. You can do horror that way, you can do comedy, you can do romance, you can do just a whole plethora of things. And it can build suspense and tension because suspense and tension is not really built in POV. Suspension tension is built with revealing and withholding information from the reader and how long it takes you to describe something. That's how you build suspense. That's how you build tension. And the beats of action is how you build thrills in the writing. So POV is really just, do you want them to have this first person like video game kind of thing, or do you want to have more of like a sit back movie theater experience for the reader? Um, and I've rambled on about this for a good 20 minutes, and I think that's going to be my first video. I hope that was fun for anyone else. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any suggestions on how I can improve these videos or what I should talk about or specifics, if you want me to start doing specific examples on how to write these, examples from my books, things I've read in other books, I'd be happy to do that. I want to talk about this. I want to get better. I want to make sure that this is actually helpful to someone. not just for me to ramble into the ether, which I'm happy to do, but also to make sure that I'm actually imparting something that might be useful to other writers. So if you want more examples, if you want to talk about the better way to achieve POVs, if you have questions, um, if you want to talk about, oh, I want to get better at dialogue, or I want to get better at action sequences, or I want to get better at overall story arcs, or character development. I love character development. I'm gonna make some videos on character development because it's part of my favorite thing. But I want to talk about the little steps that help you find your techniques and hone your craft to make your writing one more fun for you and more fun for your reader. So um, thank you for listening to me. This is the Mighty Mama Mouse. If you want to read my books, they are still available and they are linked in all my things. Anyway, I love you. I appreciate you. You have yourself a wonderful day.